Ilara's eyes snapped open to darkness. The air was thick, metallic, and unnaturally cold. She was bound, her wrists and ankles secured by restraints that hummed with alien energy. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she was trapped, floating in the center of a chamber so vast that the edges seemed to vanish into shadows. A low murmur filled the room, like voices from beneath the earth, or perhaps from beyond the stars. The sound was fragmented, harsh, and impossible to locate, everywhere and nowhere at once. Ilara's heart pounded, each beat echoing in her skull as she tried to orient herself. Then, the lights came on, or rather, the absence of light shifted, revealing a structure so alien that it made her stomach twist. Towers of translucent metal spiraled into the void above, lined with figures seated in a perfect semicircle. The members of the Galactic Council. They weren't human. Their forms were angular, shifting, like liquid metal in humanoid shapes, with eyes that glowed in colors she didn't even have names for. Each gaze that fell upon her felt like a probe, analyzing her essence, weighing her soul. The whispers grew louder, coalescing into a single thought that seemed to pass from one alien mind to another. The offering has arrived. Ilara swallowed, her voice gone. She had heard rumors of this council. Not just rulers of distant worlds, but keepers of unimaginable horrors. Entire species had vanished under their edicts, lost to history, the human records had said. But this was different. This was a personal judgment. A figure rose from the central throne. Taller than the others, its silhouette flickered between shapes, sometimes a perfect humanoid, sometimes a jagged crystalline form. It extended a hand, long and impossibly thin, toward her. "You," it intoned, its voice lead and echoing, as if spoken by dozens at once, "are the vessel of our pact. You are to be offered to the dragon beast." Ilara's blood froze. The dragon beast. Her mind raced through stories she'd only half believed, a creature so enormous, so ancient, it could consume worlds. Entire fleets had been destroyed simply by sightings of its shadow. And she was to be given to it. The chamber shifted then, as if sensing her fear. The floor vibrated with low-frequency resonance, a thrum that sank into her bones. The air around her grew heavy, shimmering like heat over a desert plain, distorting the edges of reality. The murmurs of the council grew frantic, excited, anticipation, or hunger. She couldn't tell. A door appeared, or rather, a gash in the wall, glowing faintly with a pale, sickly green light. Through it, a shape moved. At first, it was impossible to comprehend. Enormous, serpentine, scales glinting with molten hues that seemed alive, eyes glowing with a terrifying intelligence. Its wings, folded tightly against its body, were massive, each one large enough to swallow the chamber whole. Ilara struggled against her restraints, panic igniting like wildfire in her chest. She screamed, a raw, human sound that seemed almost too weak against the vastness of the room. The council did not flinch. Their hands moved in strange gestures, symbols glowing in the air, shaping reality itself to their will. The beast paused at the threshold, nostrils flaring, its gaze locking on her. And then, something impossible happened. For a brief instant, the creature's eyes seemed to meet hers, not with hunger, but curiosity. A flicker of hesitation? Ilara felt a strange connection, a pulse in the air that made her chest tighten. Her fear surged, but with it came an inexplicable awareness. The beast was alive, more than just instinct. It was conscious. And it was looking at her. The lead counselor spoke again, the voice resonating through her very bones. "Fear not the pain, human. This is your destiny." Destiny. A word that tasted like ash. Ilara's mind raced. Destiny? Or death? The beast moved closer, each step shaking the chamber, reverberating through the restraints that held her. The shadows around it writhed like living smoke, twisting unnaturally, consuming parts of the floor, the walls, the edges of her vision. And yet, in the depths of her terror, Ilara noticed something strange. In the shimmer of the beast's scales, in the flicker of its eyes, there were patterns, lines, like veins of light, forming symbols she recognized. Ancient runes. Human runes. She had seen them before, in a dream. Her heart raced. The council's ritual, their summoning, it was not only about sacrifice. It was about transformation. About something she didn't yet understand. The chamber's hum deepened, vibrating in rhythm with the beast's movements. Ilara's pulse matched it, her body taut, ready to snap. She tried to steady herself, focusing on her breath. Every instinct screamed to resist, to survive, but against what? A dragon beast, or the will of a galaxy-spanning council? The lead counselor raised a hand, signaling the final command. The murmurs intensified, a crescendo of alien voices vibrating in unison. And then, all at once, the beast opened its mouth, revealing teeth sharp as moons, a throat black as the void, and a single, unearthly sound filled the chamber, a roar that tore at reality itself. Ilara closed her eyes, bracing for the end. The roar subsided, but the chamber still trembled. Ilara's body sagged in her restraints, every muscle quivering with fear. When she dared to open her eyes, the dragon beast had fully revealed itself. It was far larger than any description could have prepared her for. Its head alone was the size of a starship, crowned with jagged horns that glimmered like blackened crystal. Scales shifted across its enormous frame in colors that defied comprehension, silver that looked like liquid mercury, deep violet like the shadowed void between stars, and molten orange that flickered as if fire coursed beneath the surface. The creature's eyes were its most horrifying feature, intelligent, piercing, and disturbingly human in their awareness. Ilara swallowed hard. Every instinct screamed for her to flee, but the restraints held firm, energized by the Council's alien technology. She was utterly exposed. The beast's gaze fixed on her, and in that instant, the air around her seemed to warp. It wasn't just heat or pressure, it was as if reality itself trembled. The chamber walls rippled like water, bending light and shadow. Ilara felt a nausea of time and space pressing down on her chest. The Council murmured again, their voices overlapping in a dissonant harmony that resonated through her skull. "Proceed," they commanded, their tone both ritualistic and detached, as though they were setting a laboratory experiment in motion. The dragon beast flexed its massive wings. For a brief moment, the room was bathed in their shadow, and Ilara felt like an ant beneath a hurricane. The sound was deafening, a low-frequency vibration that rattled her bones and made the air itself seem alive. Then it moved closer. Each step sent small tremors across the floor, echoing in her chest like a drumbeat of doom. She could hear its breath, a deep, resonant rasping that smelled of iron and ancient decay. Ilara's mind raced. This is it. This is the end. Her thoughts were jagged, shards of panic stabbing through her consciousness. She tried to reason, to find some opening, some way out, but the beast's intelligence was clear. It was not mindless, it was calculating, aware of her every movement, her every fear. And yet, it hesitated. The pause was subtle, almost imperceptible, but Ilara noticed it. Its massive head tilted slightly, and a slow, deliberate pulse seemed to emanate from its body, resonating with the faint threads of energy in her restraints. Something about her, the way she was bound, trembling yet defiant, drew its attention. There was a curiosity there, primal and alien, that she could not ignore. The Council's murmuring intensified. "Do not falter. The offering must be complete." Their voices were urgent now, lead with impatience. But the beast remained still, its massive claws scratching the chamber floor in slow arcs, sending sparks of strange energy that danced along the walls. Ilara's chest tightened. Her fear was a living thing, feeding on the beast's presence, yet at the same time, there was a strange awe blooming in her mind. She had expected pure carnage, but there was something conscious about this monster. Something she could not comprehend. Suddenly, the beast lowered its head toward her. Its nostrils flared, and the heat of its breath washed over her, smelling of charred metal and smoke. She could feel the pulse of its heartbeat through the floor and into her very bones. Her body tensed, expecting death in the form of teeth or claws. But instead, the beast did something wholly unexpected. It extended its tongue, not in a gesture of aggression, but almost communicative. It touched the edges of her restraints, brushing against the alien energy that held her, and the chamber shifted again. Threads of light from the beast's scales seemed to reach toward her, weaving through the air and wrapping around her bindings. Ilara's vision blurred as the threads touched her skin. She could feel them probing, not to destroy, but to connect. Memories, sensations, emotions, fleeting glimpses of the human world she had left behind, raced through her mind. She gasped. Her fear clashed with a strange, surreal awe. The Council's voice cut sharply through the chamber, almost frantic. "It must obey. The offering cannot be denied." The beast roared in response, not an animalistic cry, but something layered, intelligent, as though it understood them perfectly and dismissed their commands. The vibration of the sound shook the chamber, causing the walls to warp further, creating a surreal, almost dreamlike distortion. Ilara realized then that this was no ordinary beast. It was a conduit, a bridge between dimensions, something far older and far more intelligent than any species could comprehend. Its curiosity toward her was not mere instinct, it was recognition. Recognition of life, of consciousness, of human essence. She shivered, caught between terror and a strange sense of destiny. The council had summoned it expecting obedience, expecting carnage. But the dragon beast had its own will, and in this vast, metallic chamber at the edge of the galaxy, the rules of power, fear, and sacrifice were about to change. The chamber fell silent, save for the low, resonant hum of the beast's presence. Ilara's eyes met its gaze, and in that moment, she knew something impossible. This encounter would not end with simple death. Something surreal, something unimaginable, was about to begin. The chamber had become a world unto itself. Shadows twisted and shimmered like liquid, as if the walls themselves were breathing. The dragon beast loomed over Ilara, its massive head tilting, its eyes locking onto her with an intelligence that made her pulse pound in rhythm with its breathing. The council members leaned forward in their seats, hands weaving incomprehensible gestures, their voices blending into a high, eerie chorus. "You will comply," the lead counselor commanded, voice ringing in her head like cold steel. "The offering is required. Complete the ritual." But the dragon beast did not move toward her in a straightforward gesture of attack. Instead, it lowered its massive jaws and let out a sound that was not a roar, not a growl, but something musical. The vibrations filled the chamber, resonating through Ilara's bones, and for a brief instant, the metallic restraints around her seemed to loosen. Her heart caught in her throat. The beast's gaze, its intent, was not purely destructive. It was curious, probing, almost reverent. And then, as if sensing the council's impatience, it did something that twisted reality itself. It exhaled a plume of iridescent energy toward her, a vapor that shimmered like fractured light. Ilara felt it touch her skin, and immediately, her consciousness fractured. She saw herself in multiple places at once, running through streets of her home city, staring up at a sky she had never seen, then standing alone in a void of stars. Memories she hadn't consciously recalled, her mother's smile, her first day at school, the sting of her first failure, raced through her in dizzying succession. The dragon beast was not devouring her, it was reading her, absorbing her essence, weaving it into something new. The council hissed and murmured in alarm. Their ritual was designed for death, for destruction. They had expected screams, blood, fear, the simple satisfaction of control. Instead, they were witnessing transformation. Ilara's vision blurred further as she felt threads of light curling from her body into the scales of the beast. The threads pulsed, intertwining with the shifting, molten patterns of its skin. She could feel the creature thinking, feeling, merging with her memories and emotions. The metallic floor beneath her feet rippled as if alive, responding to the rhythm of this surreal communion. Then, she felt something impossible, the dragon beast's consciousness brushing against her own, not to harm, but to communicate. In flashes, images and emotions surged. The cold eternity of the void, the loneliness of galaxies, the hunger of a being who had existed for eons, and finally, a fragile, tentative curiosity about humanity. The council shouted now, their alien voices cracking with panic. "This is not the plan. This is not obedience." But the beast ignored them, focusing entirely on Ilara. Its massive claw hovered inches from her, yet instead of striking, it seemed to sense the very rhythm of her life. Her fear, her courage, her defiance, it all flowed into the creature, knitting itself into its being. Ilara realized, with both awe and terror, that she was no longer merely a victim. She was becoming part of something beyond comprehension, something that transcended the cruel simplicity of sacrifice. The threads of her essence shimmered brightly, wrapping around the beast's form, and for a surreal, almost holy moment, she saw herself reflected in its eyes, not as prey, but as a presence, a consciousness. A single thought broke through her fragmented mind: I am not gone. I am becoming. The council's fury reached a peak. They gestured wildly, trying to reclaim control, to force the ritual to its expected conclusion. Their alien symbols glowed violently, their voices shrieking in unison. But the dragon beast shifted, folding itself around her threads like a cocoon. The chamber seemed to stretch and twist, walls bending, lights flickering, shadows crawling over each other. The council's control was slipping. Ilara's mind felt weightless as the beast pulsed again, drawing her essence deeper into its being. She was aware of herself and yet not herself, suspended between human life and something far older, far stranger. Time stretched, slowed, and folded upon itself. She glimpsed impossible vistas, planets exploding and reforming, stars bending in arcs that defied geometry, and the faint echo of her own scream vibrating across cosmic scales. Then came a moment of absolute clarity. Her consciousness, mingling with the dragon beast, surged outward. She could feel the council's intent, the cold precision of their ritual, and yet she overrode it with something utterly human, defiance. This offering would not end in destruction. She would survive. Through this surreal communion, she would transform, and the council would witness something they could never control. The beast's roar shattered the chamber once more, but now it was different. It was layered with her presence, resonating with human memory, with awareness, with emotion. The council recoiled, unable to comprehend the scale of what had begun. Ilara's essence shimmered, threads weaving more tightly into the beast, not as prey, but as part of a new entity, something neither wholly human nor wholly alien, something that could exist between worlds. The chamber pulsed with this new reality, bending the light, the air, the very sense of what was possible. And in the final moment before the council could act, the beast opened its massive jaws, not in hunger, but in release. Threads of Ilara's essence flared outward, wrapping around the chamber, the council, and the very fabric of reality. She was gone from her human shell, yet she was everywhere, becoming something impossible, surreal, terrifying, and magnificent. The council stared, stunned, their ritual undone. The human girl they had sought to destroy had become far more than they could ever comprehend. Ilara's consciousness pulsed within the dragon beast, a storm of thought and memory weaving into the scales of a creature older than entire civilizations. She felt every heartbeat of its massive form, every surge of its ancient power, and every vibration of the chamber now warped around her presence. The council's murmurs had become frantic screams, their alien gestures frantic attempts to reclaim control, but reality itself was no longer theirs to command. She could see the council's faces, liquid metal features twisting in panic, eyes wide with disbelief, as the beast's form shimmered with threads of her essence. Her human memories were no longer fragile flashes, they were bright, tangible, and infinite. They coursed through the beast, reshaping its very mind, embedding human thoughts, emotions, and curiosity into something that had known only hunger and dominance for eons. A strange awareness overtook her. She was not just within the beast, she was becoming the beast. The scales along its neck rippled and split, revealing streaks of glowing light that mirrored her own aura. Every breath she drew seemed to expand the chamber, bending walls, stretching ceilings, and twisting shadows into impossible forms. The council's shrieks were deafening. "Cease. It is not complete. You are exceeding the parameters." They waved hands that flared with alien energy, trying to force the ritual back into their design, but each gesture was futile. The threads of Ilara's essence pulsed and tightened, weaving a lattice of consciousness that overrode every command, every calculation, every expectation. Ilara realized then that she could see the council as they had never intended her to. She could feel their fear, their ambition, their cold calculation. And she could respond, not with violence, not yet, but with awareness. Her presence alone distorted the air, the light, even the sound. The chamber vibrated with her thoughts, a symphony of human consciousness layered atop a creature that had existed in silence for millennia. The dragon beast flexed its claws. Where once they had been mere weapons, now they were extensions of Ilara's intent. Threads of glowing energy shot from the tips, weaving into the chamber's floor and walls, bending metal and stone into impossible, fluid shapes. Time seemed to stutter and loop. A council member raised their voice, only to see their own words unravel midair, fragments of syllables dissolving into shimmering particles before reaching her ears. Her mind stretched further, connecting with the vast awareness of the beast. She felt its memories, wars that had consumed entire star systems, the lonely drift of planets it had watched collapse into black holes, the endless hunger for life and sensation. And she understood them. She felt its loneliness, its endless search for meaning, and her own fear and resilience fused with it, creating something entirely new. Then came the first true manifestation of her power. The beast roared, a sound layered with her consciousness, a resonance that tore through the chamber and beyond. Shadows peeled from the walls like smoke, twisting into humanoid forms, echoes of the council's own fears and memories, projected into reality. Ilara felt them as if they were living, breathing entities, and she laughed, a sound that vibrated through scales and bone alike. The council flailed, their perfect control slipping entirely. The walls of the chamber bent impossibly, spiraling upward and inward at the same time. Time itself seemed to falter, seconds stretching into hours, hours collapsing into moments. And within that fractured flow, Ilara saw herself fully. No longer a girl bound by fear, no longer a mere sacrifice, but something in between, something impossible. Her essence spread further, entwining with the dragon beast's mind. Her thoughts became instincts, her instincts became strategy. She could feel the stars outside the chamber, the thin, invisible threads connecting every planet, every life, every pulse of light. She realized she could bend them, influence them, not yet fully, but the potential was there. She could reshape reality itself, or at least the perception of it. The council's leader raised a hand in one final attempt to assert control, and Elara responded. Not with fire, not with claws, but with perception. The lead councillor's face rippled in the beast's vision, a mirror of their own panic. Their memories, their fears, their desires, they were all visible to her, laid bare, intertwined with her consciousness. The council realized, too late, that their ritual had failed spectacularly. They had not created obedience, they had awakened something that could think, remember, and act beyond their understanding. The chamber seemed to dissolve. Light and shadow, matter and memory, all merged into a single, surreal experience. Elara felt her humanity and the beast's consciousness fuse completely, neither dominant, neither lost, but something new and terrifyingly complete. The council's screams echoed as fragments of the chamber warped into impossible shapes, floors bending into walls, ceilings twisting into voids. And then, silence. A profound, almost holy silence. The council shrank back, huddled together in disbelief. The beast, now fully transformed with Elara's essence, lowered its head. It was no longer a mere predator, it was aware of everything, and infinitely more dangerous because of it. Elara's voice, or something like it, resonated from deep within the creature, a single thought, crystal clear and impossibly calm. I am here. I am alive. And nothing you have done can undo this. The council had been defeated, not through violence, but through comprehension. They had awakened a being that existed in the impossible space between human and cosmic entity. And Elara, in fusion with the dragon beast, had begun her true transformation. The chamber had ceased to be a chamber. Walls twisted, ceiling melted into nothingness, and the metallic floor rippled beneath what was no longer just a girl or a beast, but a single, unified entity, Elara and the dragon beast, one consciousness, one impossible presence. The council cowered, their alien forms trembling as threads of reality bent and swirled around them. Elara could feel everything. Not just the council's fear, but the far-off vibrations of planets orbiting distant stars, the faint rhythm of life on worlds light-years away, the hum of energy flowing through nebulae. Her awareness stretched outward, expanding through the galaxy like a tide of impossible perception. She was no longer bound to the chamber, the council, or even her human body. And yet, she felt the council's panic as sharply as if it were a physical blow. Their rituals, their symbols, their devices, they all fizzled and warped under her presence. Threads of their control, once potent and rigid, became fragile, twisting shapes she could bend with a thought. One council member raised a hand in defiance, and Elara felt its intent as if it were a whisper in her mind. She responded, not with teeth or fire, but with the subtle weight of perception, and the alien's hand trembled and fell. The dragon beast's wings unfurled fully, stretching across the now endless chamber. Light bent around them, refracted in impossible colors, and the air itself seemed to ripple like a liquid mirror. Elara felt exhilaration surge through her. Flight, freedom, power, all at once, coursing through every pulse of this massive, fused form. She turned her focus outward. The council had summoned her to destroy, to sacrifice, to offer her to their ancient weapon, but she would not flee. She would leave. And the galaxy would remember. With a thought, the chamber dissolved entirely. One moment she was still tethered to the council, restrained and vulnerable. The next, she soared above their trembling forms. The dragon beast's wings carved through space itself, and the air, or what passed for air in this warped pocket of reality, screamed around her. Stars streaked past as if she were moving faster than light, yet every detail was clear. The glint of distant planets, the spiral of nebulae, the faint pulse of civilizations untouched by the council's cruelty. Below her, the council screamed, their voices echoing in fractured reality. They clawed at the threads of the universe, trying to pull her back, but she was no longer simply human. She had become a force that bent the very perception of the galaxy, a being who could exist across dimensions, across time, across thought itself. Elara's presence expanded further. The beast's roar, now layered with her consciousness, rolled across the void, and threads of her essence snaked outward, touching distant stars. She glimpsed the reactions of worlds far away, ships flickering out of existence, communication arrays buzzing with static, alien life forms pausing in confusion. It was subtle, she was not here to destroy, not yet, but her awareness alone reshaped the environment, bending space to her will. The council tried one last desperate gambit. They converged their energies, focusing everything into a single beam of containment, a weapon to bind her back into obedience. Ilara could feel it forming, a lattice of force intended to crush and dominate her mind. But she was already beyond it. Threads of light burst from her form, wrapping around the containment field, weaving through it, unraveling it as if it were nothing more than a fragile toy. The council's eyes widened in disbelief. Their perfect ritual, their control, their centuries of planning, all undone by the human girl they had thought powerless. Ilara let out a sound, a resonance that was part raw, part human scream, part something entirely new. The chamber and the council dissolved under her presence. Only fragments remained, warped echoes that would haunt the council for the rest of their lives, scattered across the edges of their galaxy. And then, she was free. Beyond the chamber, the galaxy stretched endlessly. Stars shimmered in impossible configurations, planets glowed with alien colors, and the faint hum of life pulsed in a symphony she could sense in every thread of her being. She had become a force of surreal, boundless perception, a being no council, no species, no law of nature could confine. Yet even in this freedom, she felt something profoundly human: wonder, curiosity, and a thread of lingering defiance. She had survived. She had transformed. And now, the galaxy itself would bear witness to what she had become. Her wings unfurled fully, spanning the void, and the dragon beast, her other half, carried her through space. She was no longer prey. She was no longer human. She was something new, something unimaginable. A presence that would haunt the council, a force that would ripple through the stars, a surreal entity beyond fear, beyond control, beyond death. Ilara's consciousness pulsed with exhilaration. She had escaped, but she had not left chaos, she had left awareness. Every corner of the galaxy, every star, every flicker of light, would remember. And somewhere, in the depths of space, she whispered, not words, not screams, but thought itself. I am here. And I am infinite. The galaxy trembled with her presence, and the council would never again feel safe. The human girl they had sought to destroy had become a force that could not be measured, tamed, or forgotten. She soared, boundless and surreal, into the infinite expanse of the stars, leaving behind not just the council, but the very rules of reality as they had known them. And in that flight, she became legend, terror, and marvel, one being, human and beast, consciousness and cosmos, unstoppable and eternal.